A relaxing dark fantasy horror story. Greenwich Woods. A quick thank you to my Patreon members who make these stories possible. Join my Patreon to get early access and more. Link in the description. There is a dark local legend that speaks of deep woods in which a flesh and bone-eating monster and its evil familiars live. The monster's familiars are even rumored to eat both flesh and souls. What kind of monstrous things are these? To get those questions answered, just stay to the end of this video. This is a Barrier Tale. In the outskirts of the Kingdom of Feldum, the royal capital of the land of Haladar, you can, if you look hard enough, find the deep and lush forest of mystery. Unbeknownst to many, however, there exists an even deeper part of this forest, a path that very few of Feldum's locals dare to travel. This darker part of the forest is a lot denser, as if its trees grow a lot quicker than in the rest of the forest. This dark and dense forest is known as Greenwich Woods. There's even a local legend tied to this place. You see, the locals in Feldum avoid venturing into this forest because they are scared of something living here. The locals claim there's an actual witch that's taken up residence in this dark place, and they call her the Green Witch, an evil green-skinned monster that cooks human bones in her magical cooking pot in order to use them in her dark magic, some say. While others say this witch has the power to find long-lost items, as long as they are of deep sentimental value. It is the latter rumor that has brought you here, but you're not alone. You are surrounded by lush and cucumber-colored trees as the sun is peeking through their treetops. In front of you, however, stands a dark opening, completely devoid of light, that makes the other trees seem like small bushes. Unnaturally tall trees that have grown so tall that they are bent and leaning close to each other, resting. This makes this dreadful opening look like a cramped back alley from a capital city, but made out of wood and leaves instead of stone, of course. This is the entrance to what the locals refer to as Greenwich Woods. To your right, determinedly stands the paladin Gina Odrus, with her baby blue chainmail armor glistening with sunlight that peeks through the cucumber-colored leaves above, and her yellow cape rests still against her back. To your left stands, or rather sits, the child-sized halfling wizard, Frogrin. His green and brown outfit rests against the grass on the ground as Frogrin temporarily removes his green ale pint-shaped glasses from his nose. He wipes sweat away from his eyebrows. "Finally!" Frogrin exclaims. "I thought we'd never get here. My legs are freaking vibrating. You two do me a favor, will ya? Remind me that we shall never travel here again." Frogrin freezes in place for a moment, but I know it's gonna be worth it just this one time. If that so-called witch could find the long-lost necklace of your mother, Gina. I know you and your mother were really close while she was alive, Frogrin says with a caring and knowing look. "Thank you, my dear friend," Gina smiles. "And yes, Frogrin, this was a long trip indeed. I too feel vibrations in my legs and, well, in other places that I'm not used to." Frogrin makes out a gut-deep laugh, looks at Gina and at you. As Gina's cheeks grow a bit red, Gina clears her throat. Anyway, Gina continues. I feel a dense magical energy radiating from this place. I actually don't even recognize it. Well, that's a first, Froggen comments surprisedly, as he lets his green ale pint glasses rest against his nose again. Even me being a wizard, you, Gina, usually have better sense when it comes to reading energies in particular. Yes, Gina replies. That kind of bothers me, actually. Why is that? Froggen asks. Because that means that basically anything, good or bad, could be lurking within Greenwich Woods. I mean, one part of the legend says the Green Witch is a man-eating monster, while the other says she is a finder of lost items. And then there's the locals who claim they've heard twigs snapping, accompanied by some kind of fluttering noise. And don't forget the colored lights some locals have seen, Froggen chips in, that have appeared out of thin air, and they've never seen any kind of form or figure accompanying them either, humanoid or otherwise. And then there's the locals who think the source of the light is the evil familiars of the Green Witch, and that it is said that those entities don't only eat your flesh, but your soul as well, since the Green Witch only needs, Froggen gulps, your bones. That, Froggen continues, while visibly starting to shiver, really gives me the creeps. Yes, Froggen, that scares me too, Gina answers absent-mindedly as she looks at the ground, as she slowly closes her eyes. This is for you, Mother. Gina then swiftly opens her eyes and gazes determinedly against the eerie entrance to Greenwich Woods. She looks at Froggen and then at you and smiles. Let's find out which parts of that legend are true. One would think that the denseness of the Greenwich Woods would open up at one point, but it doesn't. The cramped back alley feeling that the forest entrance gave off is still as strong, if not stronger. To your right and left, there are only unnaturally tall trees that stand so close together that there are just small cracks between them. It'd be impossible to squeeze through them. There is enough of a gap that one can see what's on the other side of the trees, though, and in front of you there's no clearing in sight. You, Gina and Froggen carefully walk like this for what feels like a couple of hours. No sunlight manages to reach this deep into the Greenwich Woods, so it's pitch black. But thankfully, Gina's silver sword, Shiligido, has the power to ignite light. Then, as Gina's sword acts as your party's lantern, the back alley formed forest path takes a sharp turn, and there, uncannily unshrouded by the unnaturally tall and forward-bent trees, you see a building. It looks like a small hut of sorts. A twig breaks in the distance. So far, the only sound you've heard is your own party's footsteps. Another broken twig, and this sound was closer. I don't like this, Froggen whispers while meeting your gaze. At all. The locals were talking about hearing broken twigs, and Gina places herself in front of you and Froggen, interrupting Froggen's whispers, and stands completely quiet. You can see that Gina has a more determined look than usual, and yet another broken twig that sounds even closer. Gina moves and raises her shining silver sword towards the source of the sound as she squints her eyes. As the three of you gaze into the thin cracks between the trees, another broken twig, very close, and something that reminds of fluttering. Then it gets dark. Gina, what are you doing? Froggen whispers in panic. Wait, Gina whispers, and as your eyes adjust to the darkness, you can see thin strands of multicolored lights between the trees' cracks, and they are fluttering. Run! Gina screams as she swiftly hits her silver sword to the ground, which makes its light start shining once again. You can see behind you that those multicolored lights have now moved onto the back alley-like path you've just been walking on. Gina screams in panic. Run towards that house! Slam is the sound that the wooden door of the mysterious hut gives off just before it stands safely closed behind you. The room that you, Gina, and Frogrin now stand in is so dimly lit that you can only make out blurry silhouettes of the things before you. For some reason, the lantern light from Gina's sword, Shiliido, went completely dark as soon as you entered this building. You hear a soft metallic tapping against the floor as Gina appears to try to ignite her sword again as quietly as possible, and nothing happens. You can feel the air currents from Gina's hands swaying back and forth until she manages to grab your right shoulder. Gina gently pats you on your arm. She found you. About the same time, Frogrin's arms grab a hold of one of your legs. Well, since that is the only part of you that his halfling size manages to reach. As he does, you can feel his body vibrating. Then, as your eyes once again adjust to the dark, there actually is one thing that you can see. It's a transparent and green smoke that billows up from somewhere in the middle of the room. Snap! And a small reddish light is suddenly sending long shadows across the room. You now see that Frogrin is raising one of his hands above his head, and between the tips of his pointing finger and thumb there's now a red flame. Of course, Frogrin can use fire magic. Your party just found a new light source. Gina gracefully moves her blonde hair away from her face as she gratefully smiles at Frogrin and gives him a swift thumbs up. Frogrin grins in response. His green ale-pint-shaped glasses sparkles in the red fire's light. Gina's blue eyes suddenly turn towards you, giving you a quick smile before her facial expression swiftly transitions into seriousness and determination. She places one of her pointing fingers in front of her lips as her gaze faces towards the source of the green smoke. The smoke is billowing up from the wide opening of a black and round object, the size of half a human. The object appears to be made out of cast iron. You can now see that the faint green light is shining out of the cast iron object's opening, and there's a bubbling noise coming from it. When looking closer, you can see there's some kind of green liquid inside the cast iron object. Not only that, you also see the ends of long, solid, and white objects sticking out of this liquid. Is that bones? And suddenly, from the base of the cast iron object, a black shadow of a person rises. This person is now standing upright and in front of the bubbling black cauldron, but still with its back turned to you. Frogrin falls down to the floor with a thud, while thankfully also managing to keep his red flame lit. Gina's baby blue armor clangs, and her yellow cape is swung to the side as she determinedly grabs her silver sword with both of her hands, pointing it towards the mystery person. And this person is wearing a hat, but not any kind of hat. It's a long and pointy witch hat. With her back still turned away from you, the Green Witch slowly turns her head to the right, so she can almost face your gaze. You can see that her skin, just like the rumors said, is bright green, and you hear a voice sounding like an unoiled door, saying, "You lost, my poor pretties. We can't have that now, can we?" The Green Witch slowly raises one of her arms, and thanks to Frogrin's fire, you can see that the witch's fingers have unnaturally long, black and sharp nails. The Green Witch snaps one of her fingers, and candles placed everywhere all across the room are all suddenly lit simultaneously. They give off a really bright but also very pleasant yellow light, and you can finally see the whole room. Apart from the candles that are literally placed everywhere, both where it is fitting to place candles and where it really isn't. There are also cloth sacks placed all around the room, and there's something brown in each of these sacks. As you take in the view, you can see that the witch actually hasn't long nails at all. Was that only the shadows you just saw? The witch clears her throat and lets out a couple of deep coughs. She suddenly jumps, rotating around completely, facing the three of you, face to face. With her face now completely visible, she looks like a young woman in her 30s, with smooth green skin and a black beauty spot in one of her cheeks. The Green Witch looks at you with her dark orange eyes, tilts her head soothingly, and gives the three of you a polite, ear-to-ear smile. "Xesadoriac Xeneronsion," the Green Witch says. "But you can just call me Essa. It's easier." Essa reaches out an open hand towards you, inviting a handshake. "I think our reader, or viewer, depending on how you consume this story, should have the honor of having my first handshake." "Now wait a minute," Frogrin exclaims. "Aren't you supposed to be evil? And, reader? Viewer? What nonsense are you going on about?" "First and foremost, me being evil? No?" Essa replies, while confusedly scratching her green cheek where her one beauty spot is. "And is one a reader or a viewer? Well, a kinda deep question, isn't it?" Essa fishes up a pair of perfectly square-shaped black glasses out of her pocket and places them against her nose. With these glasses equipped, Essa's eyes look huge. "That question was kind of fourth wall breaking too." Essa squints her now gigantic deep orange eyes, while suspiciously eyeing Frogrin. "Didn't know you dealt with that kind of stuff, Frogrin." "Fourth wall breaking?" Frogrin replies. "What kind of a wall is that? What are you... wait. How did you know my name?" Essa giggles at Frogrin's confused state. Ina's jaw has dropped to the floor as she perplexedly observes the scene in front of her, still holding her silver sword, steady with both of her arms. Essa notices Gina's steady grip around her sword. "Gina," Essa says, while Gina looks back, shocked. "You can relax. You and your two friends are safe here with me. I don't know what kind of rumors you've heard about me, but I'm not evil." Gina lessens her tight grip around Shiligido somewhat, but not completely. "But," Frogrin says, "aren't you cooking bones in your witch cauldron?" "Oh my gosh! No! No, 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 no. No!" Essa exclaims, utterly horrified. Why would anyone ever do that? Yuck! Double yuck! Triple yuck! Essa becomes so disgusted that her square-shaped black glasses almost jump off her face. Hold up there, Froggen interrupts. Then, what are you cooking in that pot? There are locals who think you're a man-eating monster, you know. Local smokers, Essa pouts as she pats herself on her green cheeks. I would have them know that I'm a really nice witch. And cute. Especially cute. Anyway, moving on. Essa interrupts herself. I want you to feel safe. So come over to my cauldron, my pretties, and I will show you what the witch is cooking. Essa gestures towards her bubbling black cauldron, containing green liquid and those mysterious, white, and solid parts sticking out of it. Very well, Gina loosens the grip of her silver sword, letting it rest towards the floor instead of being pointed towards Essa. Gina now carries the sword in one hand instead of two, without completely letting her guard down. I guess you deserve a chance to explain yourself, Gina shrugs. Quite, Essa replies. As you, Gina, and Frogrin stand in front of Essa's witch cauldron, you can see traces of leaves and mud in the green liquid. I'm cooking fertilizers, Essa explains, matter-of-factly. Fertilizers? Frogrin replies, shocked, as Gina's eyes also grow wide. But what about those white, solid things in there? White limestones from the wilderness peaks, Essa answers. They are perfect for powering up fertilizers, you see. Essa catches the confusion on your faces. You didn't think the trees around these parts grew so tall and quick by themselves now, did ya? Essa winks playfully with one of her enormous, deep orange eyes. And my voice was raspy before because I had been standing too long in the fertilizer smoke. Essa coughs embarrassedly. Well, I guess that's that. The rumor of the flesh and bone eating monster was false. But Froggen lights up, looks at Gina, then at you, and finally back to Essa. Maybe then you're a finder of lost items. Gina's blue eyes light up. Mother's necklace. As a matter of fact, Essa manages to say before loud fluttering can be heard just outside, and as you gaze towards Essa's windows, you see they are covered with multicolored lights. As Essa faces the window, she utters, We've got company. What kind of monstrous things from the local legends will you, Gina, and Frogrin encounter in the Green Witch Woods? Before I reveal that to you, if you like my storytelling, hit subscribe so you won't miss any of my weekly stories. And while you're at it, Tales Triber, be sure to visit birgertales.com and become an official member of the Tales Tribe community to get free stories and weekly emails with early story previews, personal words from me, and more. I'll even throw in a potato. You get all of that by subscribing to Birger Tales' free mailing list by visiting birgertales.com. I'd love to see you there, or visit the link in the description or the pinned comment below. And now, let's finish this story. Electric is how the air feels around you. In the blackness outside the windows of Essa's hut, the mysterious multicolored lights simply float and does nothing. As do you, Gina, Frogrin, and Essa. Because of this uneasy standstill, the tension in the air starts to feel thick as a bowl filled to the brim with bean soup. What happens next, however, makes the bowl of bean soup fall down to the floor. Before any one of you can blink, With Essa's green hands, she calmly unlatches the locks on the very windows that the multicolored lights are lurking behind. Essa! Gina and Frogin scream in unison as Gina's blonde hair almost raises rag like a cat, and as Frogrin's green ale pint-shaped glasses almost jumps into the air, despite your friend's cries. In the following moment, Essa swings the windows wide open, and as soon as she does, they are inside. In what feels like a split second, Gina instinctively draws her silver sword. Shiligido protectively jumps in front of you as her baby blue armor clangs, and her yellow cloak brushes gently against your skin. Gina grabs Frogrin by the waist of his green and brown outfit and gently tosses him behind her. Both you and Frogrin now stand behind Gina as the reflections of the multicolored lights make Gina's silver sword sparkle with the 7 colors of the rainbow. Gina defensively points the silver sword directly towards the roof of Essa's cauldron room. The multicolored lights slowly float around the roof in a circular motion, just like a flock of vultures patiently awaiting a dying animal's last breath. But despite this, no malice can be felt from them. "You can come down," Essa says calmly, opening up her arms in an inviting hug motion while gazing upwards towards the multicolored lights. "No need to be shy. These 3 are just new acquaintances of mine," Essa says while meeting your gaze with a wink. As Essa finishes that sentence, the flock of multicolored lights freeze in place, as if someone just hit their pause button. They silently float there for a moment, then they all slowly descend towards the floor and stop at about the same height as your faces, except for Frogrin's face, of course. He still needs to bend his neck upwards to look at the multicolored lights. The silence around your party vibrates. But then, thankfully, Frogrin breaks this uncomfortable silence. "What is going on?" Frogrin shouts, looking at Essa with his arms outstretched towards the roof. "Oh, how improper of me," Essa replies, embarrassedly. "I mean, you didn't know that these entities were my friends. Of course, I should have told you that before I opened the windows. My bad," Essa utters, while embarrassedly scratching the back of her neck, as a square-shaped black glasses sparkle in the multicolored light's radiance. The multicolored lights appear to sparkle a bit more intently. "My bad?" Frogrin exclaims. "Is that all you have to say for yourself? You scared us half to death, you know." Speechless, Essa blinks at Frogrin confusedly. "Yes," Gina replies, while still holding a firm grip around her silver sword. "That wasn't exactly the best way to introduce friends of yours, especially since we've heard the rumors that the lights in the Greenwich Woods supposedly eat both flesh and souls." "Flesh? And souls?" Essa exclaims. "Of course not! Where did you get that ridiculous idea from?" Both Gina and Frogrin raise one of their eyebrows in confusion. "Can you believe the gall of kids these days?" Essa shakes her head as she meets your gaze with a smirk. "No way!" Frogrin replies with a gasp. "That rumor, what, false too?" Frogrin exclaims, shocked. The multicolored lights do a couple of pirouettes in the air. "Indeed," Essa replies. "These lights are completely harmless." The multicolored lights blinks as if agreeing with that statement. "So please, just relax." As Essa explains this, you can see Gina's grip loosen around her silver sword yet again. Gina lets out a deep sigh of relief as she sheathes her silver sword completely. As a matter of fact, Essa continues, there isn't anything evil in these woods at all. These past 200 years, my magic has made sure of that. Essa curiously scratches her green nose. But please, Essa continues, do tell where you heard this rumor from. Well, Frogrin replies, as he also looks more relaxed. We heard it from most of the locals in Feldum. What? Essa exclaims. And the rumor that I was an evil bone and flesh-eating monster? Well, Gina replies, embarrassedly. That rumor came from the locals too. Essa looks at the floor as she closes her eyes and places a pointing finger and thumb at the top of her green nose. I can't believe this, Essa exclaims in utter shock, shaking her head. Here I have been using my magic to protect Feldum all these years, and this is how they thank me? Sheesh! Essa covers her eyes with one of her hands, bends her head so much that most of her face gets covered by her witch hat, and you start to hear gentle sobs coming from her. Well, Gina says, hesitating for a moment, before she empathically walks up to Essa and places one of her hands on one of Essa's shoulders. That must feel awful. It really does, Essa exclaims as she throws herself into Gina's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Gina first looks shocked, but then smiles and returns Essa's embrace, while soothingly patting her on her back. The multicolored lights float back and forth in the air for a short moment. This was a plot twist that I never could have expected, Frogrin says while looking at Essa and Gina. I'm actually starting to feel kinda bad for having believed those rumors about you, Essa. Frogrin's eyes slowly grow glossy. Essa lets go of Gina's embrace, looks her in the eyes, meets Frogrin's gaze, and then yours. Thank you, everyone, Essa sniffles. I mean, I now understand why you thought those things about me. Having heard those negative rumors themselves, combined with how dark this forest is, if I hadn't known what I know, maybe I would have felt scared too. It might actually be high time to bring some more light into this forest. Frogrin also walks up to Essa and pats her on one of her knees. Now when we've gotten to know you a bit better, I'd just like to say that you're okay in my book, Essa. Frogrin gives Essa a friendly smile. The multicolored lights make a couple of pirouettes. Thank you, Frogrin, Essa replies. That means a lot. Essa smiles widely as she bends down to pat Frogrin on his head. Frogrin grins in response. And well, Essa continues, you can't really see their forms yet. The light's forms, I mean. If you could. Essa's eyes widen. As a matter of fact, you actually can. Essa straightens her black robes and wipes tears away from behind her square-shaped black glasses. Essa looks towards the multicolored lights and proudly raises her arms into the air. After this spell, you will see their true forms, and I promise to tell you all about them. Essa meets Gina's gaze, including the business with your mother's necklace. Gina's eyes widen, and she nods to Essa with an appreciative smile. Rainbow light radiates from Essa's raised hands, and the multicolored lights start moving in circular motion as Essa exclaims, Avada Elementaria! A flash of bright light envelops you as the light from Essa's spell dims. Instead of multicolored lights, you now see small life forms floating in front of you. It appears that every multicolored light you saw before were each, in reality, a singular creature. There are many, but one of them is red and looks like a winged fairy consisting of fire. There is a blue one that looks like a mermaid that drips water. Another one looks like a tree branch that drops leaves, and so on. These, my friends, can I call you friends? Essa asks, as he looks at you, Gina, and Frogrin. Gina and Frogrin nod and smile, while you respond in a way that feels fitting to you. Essa blinks slowly and gives off a wide smile. These, my new friends, are my nature friends, the elementals. The various elementals make pirouettes and float about in various unique ways, showing off their personality. Gina's and Frogrin's eyes widen with amazement. In your reality, Essa locks her gaze with yours. If you feel open to it, you can ask them for help whenever you like, especially in forests or nature. If a pet or a person is lost in the woods, you can ask the elementals to help guide the pet or person back to civilization. Or if there is a forest fire, you can ask the elementals to help put the fire out, or to save as many animals or people from the fire as possible. You can ask the elementals anything really. Only your own imagination sets the boundaries. Essa finishes as she pets one of the elementals on its tiny head. They also want to let you know that they followed you earlier to make sure you'd not get lost. You were really deep in the woods after all. Essa winks at the three of you. And Gina, Essa continues, as Gina locks her gaze with Essa's with visible anticipation. I'm actually not a finder of lost items either, I'm afraid. Gina appears to be about to say something, but her words get stuck in her throat, and she looks down on the floor instead. Frogrin drops down to the floor, lets out a deep sigh, and stares at the ground. Gina's eyes start to grow glossy. Essa walks up to Gina, gently raises her chin with one of her green hands, so she can look Gina in the eyes. Gina meets Essa's dark orange gaze as small tears start dripping along her cheeks. You don't need an old trinket in order to keep your mother around. Why? Gina sniffles. Because she is already with you, Essa replies. As a matter of fact, she's here right now. Frogrin raises his head. Gina's glossy blue eyes widen. You can see her? Yes, she wants you to know that it wasn't your fault that she got killed by the demon Alastor. Gina clenches both her eyes and her teeth, and she starts to shake. And she also wants you to know. Gina looks into Essa's dark orange eyes with her glossy gaze. She wants you to know that she is always with you, and especially when you feel afraid. Gina lets out a loud sobbing as sparkling tears slowly drip to the floor of Essa's hut. Frogrin's eyes sparkle with gloss as he sniffles and smiles. Essa, Gina stutters sobbingly. Thank you so much. You, Gina, and Frogrin leave the Green Witch's hut along the back alley-like forest path you first came from. This time around, the forest brings in a lot more light. Essa has apparently already worked her magic, just like she said she would. I'm glad for your sake, Gina, Frogrin says. Thank you, dear friend, Gina replies. I actually feel a lot lighter now. Gina lights up and smiles at Frogrin, and then at you. And from now on, Frogrin continues. Let's never believe any rumors about the person again. Instead, let us ask the person that the rumor concerns directly instead. so we can hear their version of the story first. Let's, Dina replies with a smile. Greenwich Woods sounds like an ill-fitting name now, after all we've been through, Brogreen says. Let's meet up with the royal family of Feldum and ask them to change the name of the forest. What should we call it? Dina's eyes light up. Let's call it Essas Woods. Click or tap the screen here to watch another dark fantasy story from Beery Tales. Check out free stories and get early access with the links in the description or the pinned comment below. And a special thank you to all of my Patreon members who made this story possible.